Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Northside Board of Trustees. Before calling this meeting to order, the board would like to take just a moment to briefly review some of the rules for conducting our meeting. The order of business for this meeting is set out in the agenda. One item that you may notice on the agenda is the consent agenda. This item includes items that are considered routine and/or of a recurring nature. All the items listed under consent will be acted upon in one motion. If there's a consent agenda item which anyone here would like to address, please sign up to speak to that item and we will pull it from the consent motion and discuss it separately. The purpose of our meeting is to conduct board business, and for that reason it is held in public. It is not a public forum. However, we do provide the opportunity for audience participation. If there is anyone who would like to address the board during an agenda item or citizens to be heard portion of the agenda, we ask that you please register on the sign-up sheet located at the entrance to this room, back where Monica is standing. This is so we do not overlook anyone who would like to speak to the board. We will review the rules for addressing the board later in the meeting. Is there anyone here who would like to sign up to an agenda item and has not done so? Okay. The meeting will then officially be called to order. Please stand as Trustee Gerald Lopez leads us in the invocation and pledges of allegiance.
Almighty and merciful God, we ask your guidance and blessings upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators as we assembled here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Gerald. Well, welcome everybody here tonight on this, second day of school. You'll notice that I am filling in tonight for Carol Harrell. Carol is in Ireland with her sister and her husband, and they're hiking and seeing the countryside. She's sent some beautiful pictures, and I can't wait to hear about it when she gets back. You will know most recently, a few weeks ago, her father passed away. So please keep her family and her in your prayers. Also, Melissa Chumley will be joining us at a later time. She's not here right now, but she's stuck in traffic, as we can all relate to, and she'll be here shortly. And again, welcome. The first item on the agenda tonight is the superintendent's report. Dr. Woods?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Freeman, members of the board, members of our audience, just a few things to report tonight. Obviously, one of the key purposes of our meeting tonight is to ask the board for consideration of the 2019-2020 budget and the tax rate that supports that budget. As members of the board know, we literally started working on this in January. It's a many months process, and tonight we will bring that hopefully to a conclusion. I want to thank the members of our staff, specifically David Rastellini, Wes Scott, and Jennifer Benke for their leadership in the development of the budget on the staff side. Those are the folks that do by far and away the lion's share of that work. I also want to thank Naomi Miller for her help in helping us interpret House Bill 3, which had such a significant impact on our budget this year. Thanks to the board for your participation in all of the various and sundry back-to-school events, as this is week one of school for us. Everything from welcoming new teachers to greeting administrators and their families, block walking for some of you, and then obviously last week's convocations. I want to thank James and all the folks in fine arts, Barry and his team. They're the ones that run convocation. I show up and read the script that they've written for me, and they're the ones that are the stars of that show, and they make it come off really well every year. And I just want to thank them for some incredible performances and really amazing coordination. Think about the number of students performing, the number of adults it takes to get that well organized and to come off the way it does. So thanks to all of you for that. Really, I think the excitement around the start of the school year was really on full display. I've been able to see a little bit of high school athletics. Volleyball has long been going. High school football starts this weekend. Excited about that. It really feels like the start of the school year. You just wish it felt a little bit more like fall, to be out there. But last comment I'll make is, as yesterday was our first day, it's a little early for us to talk too much about enrollment, but I'll tell you that initial indications are that we do have significant growth in a couple of areas. One is in the pre-K space, which I know isn't surprising to the board because of the efforts we've made around moving to full-day pre-K. That's been very attractive to Northside families. But we've also seen pretty significant growth in the kinder through fifth grade area as well. And that's really positive news. And I'll hope to be able to say more specific estimates about growth by the end of this week and into the start of next week. All right, so we'll transition to our video tonight, and this time, we focus on 2 teachers new to Northside.
I'll come back and get a picture. You can see and feel the excitement around Northside schools on the first day.
You want some breakfast?
As 106,000 students head back to school and into the classroom. In Melissa Villarreal's 5th grade class at Mary Hall Elementary, today is extra special.
A lot of nerves, a lot of excitement.
Not only is it the first day of a new school year, it's the first day of her teaching career.
Letting them see that I'm excited to be here, and I hope you're excited to be here, and it's going to be a fun classroom. That's my favorite part of teaching.
Melissa is one of 600 new teachers in Northside. For some of these brand new teachers, today is a dream come true and the result of a lot of hard work.
Now I'm like a real teacher. Like I get a classroom and I get my own students, and like I get to be Mrs. Neal. So I'm excited about that.
Hey, Serenity. Good morning.
There's also excitement with some of our smallest students as they kick off the new school year for the very first time in one of our pre-K classrooms.
Green, Green, what's his name?
This year, Northside is expanding its pre-K program to full day at 35 elementary schools, and we continue offering half-day pre-K at another 35 campuses. And despite all the excitement, teachers and support teams have been preparing for this day for weeks. Things like New Teacher Academy, where new to Northside teachers have several days of professional development and learn about Northside.
Anybody want to help with that? We have a lot of...
Or when teachers and administrators go into the community to make sure students and families have school supplies and anything they need to make this 2019 school year a success.
There's so much family.
And it's developing that trust between the student, the family, and the teacher and the administration and everybody in the school, from the cafeteria workers to our custodians. It's important. It's the groundwork that we lay to start the beginning of the school year, and we maintain that throughout the year and keep it going, and that's what's really important.
That's a look at what's going on around Northside. Thanks for joining us for this video from Northside Media Productions. Northside is San Antonio's premier school district of choice.
Ms. Freeman, that concludes Superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. Next item on the agenda is board members' report. Board members, anyone wish to talk about anything? Joseph, I see you push your button, but my light's not working, but go right ahead.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Those in the audience. I just wanted to also mention Chaka and Bettis and Dr. Woods. The convocation was one to remember. Our students and directors did a phenomenal job bringing excitement to the school year for our staff and for everyone that was present there. more importantly, I wanted to wish all our teachers, again, the very best year this school year, our student success, and the promise that we have for the families that we'll do all that we can to make sure their child's successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph. Ms. Reed?
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. For those of you who are not aware, I'm probably going to be leaving here very shortly. My husband has had open heart surgery to replace a valve, and he just came home at 3:30 this afternoon, and he's there by himself, and I don't think that's a good thing. So I'm just going to stay for a very brief time and then go back home. But it's nice to know that he's had some great health care at University Hospital. So, and if you don't know, he's also the president of the Medical Foundation, which has the land under the hospital. So they're actually coming around and calling him boss. It's been kind of an interesting experience. I was at a number of the convocations last week, and I just have to say they have been fantastic. And the kids are just so much fun to watch. And as you have told us, they have kids there from all the different high schools and middle schools, and they're making new friendships across those lines. And that's a really fun thing to see happening. And they enjoyed the performing, so it was great. So thank you. And you do more than just read a script. So you are a very great presenter. But I don't know that we want to do the pictures of the aging staff anymore.
Ray would support that notion, yes.
I thought that was interesting. I don't know if anybody noticed, but Dr. Woods kind of looked like Bob Barker as you aged. Did anybody talk to you, mention that?
Like if Bob Barker was 122, you know. It was not a pretty picture at all.
That was good. Would that be it? Thank you, Miss Reed. And anytime you need to leave, please feel free. We're happy that you're here and wish your husband the best in his recovery. Mr. Medina, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Karen. First of all, I just want to say James and Barry and Stan, thank you very much for the convocations. It was great. Great opportunity to see all our kids working together from from middle school to high school, and then our different fine arts groups. It was good in our spirit organization. So thank you very much. It was a great presentation, and I could really see the eyes of the kids when they walked in, and in fact, I was told a story that one of the kids from middle school who had never been into the facility was in awe because it was such a big arena, and and I was like, really? It wasn't that big, but to them, when they're in middle school, it's huge. So, great little story on that. But congratulations to everybody on that had a part with that. Want to also thank Principal Pettis from Martin Elementary. I had a chance to block walk with him on Monday, the week before school started, and we really got to talk to the parents and see some of the kids and let them know about what was going on, and hey, make sure you come in on Monday, things like that. So had a great opportunity to walk with some of the teachers, and they're really doing great things, and very proud of Mr. Pettis and the team there at Martin Elementary. They're doing a great job there, so wanted to give a shout out to them. Other than that was it. So thank you. I think I stayed within my 3 minutes, right? Yeah, so.
Thank you. And I think I need some remedial help with these lights here. Mr. Blunt?
And you're fine on your 3 minutes. He didn't hold up the yellow card. So just two quick items. I'm going to be a little bit repetitive on the convocation. That really was a national performance, and that's putting it lightly. I really don't know any other district that could have put that together the way that it was done. So very, very, very pleased, without a doubt. The next one I had is I've been around the state talking to different boards on different presentation issues the last couple of months. I want to tell everybody the number one topic, I can talk data and other things, everybody just but when I bring up culture, there's just dialogue that goes on and on again, because everybody wants to know, what does that really mean? How do you do it? And we start talking about some things we do at Northside. It really gets everybody going. So this idea of culture, I think, are really catching on. Everybody realizes that's the key to being a successful district. So just wanted to pass that on.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. I wanted to mention too, Katie, Miss Reed was recognized most recently by the Northwest Democrats as being one of 4 women trailblazers, and I know that Senator Letitia Vanderpute was there with you, so we're in very good company. Katie, we congratulate you for that recognition.
It's kind of, I should share with you that the Northwest Democrats have formed a really great partnership with Northside, which otherwise that would never have occurred.
So I know that you've been instrumental in helping them along the way, and we again appreciate all that you do. Carol sends her her thanks for the new teacher welcomes, and the superintendent welcomed the admin. That was a really neat event at Pedrati's, and it was nice to see the administrators there with their families, and that it just solidified the family-friendly school district that we hope to continue to nurture in the culture, Bobby, that we have in this school district. Convocations were wonderful. James, see you back there. The fine arts, I mean, that was just saying what Bobby just said. The fine arts performance was just absolutely spectacular, and the Star Spangled Banner, that was great. I don't know if somebody's got that on video, but that would be great to showcase. This is just such a great time of the year. There's a lot of excitement, anticipation, and hope with our parents and all of our students. And I got to tell you, even grandparents. So personally, I have 3 5-year-old grandkids that started kindergarten in Round Rock ISD most recently. And I got to tell you, when you talk about hope and what you want for your children, I look at my own kids, and they talk about all kinds of different things that they would like to see for their children, and not one has to do with how well they do on the STAR test or anything like that. I think what says it all, my daughter texted me today, and she drove her son up to the school and let him out. And just before he got out of the car, he looked at her and he said, "Mommy, I just love school." And that's about as good as it gets. So anyway, great start to the school year, and we wish all of our students and teachers the very best. Next item on the agenda that we have is consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I would make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve a consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is citizens to be heard. We believe citizens to be heard is important and meaningful, and we will listen to what you have to say. We value your opinions, and we ask you that you please use the podium. We mention that we are restrained by law from taking any action. Again, use the podium, address your remarks to the board, confine your remarks to a Northside policy or practice, limit your remarks to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes, the board's secretary will hold up a yellow card. At 3 minutes, the board secretary will hold up the red card. We ask that you wrap up your remarks at that point and do not make any personal attacks on individuals. We also ask that the audience refrain from applause or any negative response. First person that we call to the podium is Joseph Clifford. Mr. Clifford?
Good evening, board, and thank you for the opportunity to come and talk to you. We're new to San Antonio, and which brings up my question to the board so I wanted to ask when the last time our dress code was looked at for Northside ISD, more specifically the policy on shorts. New to Texas, it's Southern Texas, and it's a little bit hot out here. So I'm curious, I have a child in an elementary school, a middle school, and now one in a high school. Last year, my 8th grader, who is now in high school, wore shorts, more specifically, he wore basketball shorts. And these, as I read through the policy now, are specifically restricted. So my question to the board would be, or what I would ask the board is, if we have not recently, could we relook at the dress code with regard to certain things? Our schools in Northside has been fantastic in the time that I've been here in teaching my son reinforcing to my son and my 2 sons and little girl to be respectful, wonderful children. And so I appreciate what you guys are doing there. But these little things that seem to not amount to much are the things that my child will come home to. Dad, I can't wear. Got it. So let's ask the question. So thank you very much again, board, for your time. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Clifford. Mr. Michael Shoemaker.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Major Mike Schumacher. I'm the Director of Logistics, Engineering, and Force Protection at Air Force Cyber Command. But more importantly, I'm the parent of 2 sons at Nathan Callison Elementary School, Caden, a 1st grader, and Nathan, a 2nd grader in a special education classroom. In 2 years, Callison has experienced tremendous growth and nearly doubled in enrollment. Many classes are already at capacity. The parking lots are full. Drop-off and pickup lines wrap around the entire neighborhood. We know these are growing pains that will be alleviated with the opening of a new elementary school in 2021, which I believe is being addressed in an upcoming agenda matter tonight. Last year, my wife and I shared concerns at both the school level and the district level regarding staffing for the school, especially for the special education students. We worked very closely with school administration officials to address several safety issues when our son's right to a free and appropriate education was violated. We did this through frequent communication with the administration and also through the ARD process, several ARDs. This year, when we have addressed the high number of students for 1 ALE teacher with the district, we were told that it has been done before. Just because it has been done before does not mean it is best or right for our students. Our concern is that Callison is given responsibility of essentially educating 2 schools but not being given the resources to do so. There are only 2 administrators, a part-time special education coordinator, 1 ALE teacher. Callison serves a student population roughly 47% greater than the average NISD elementary school based on projections from the NISD's Resource Planning Department without the addition of any new administrative staff. This lack of staffing impacts all students. For a special education example, ARD committees must include 1 administrator or district representative. Callison likely has well over 120 students with an ARD, and that's a tremendous burden for administrators to be meaningfully involved in every student's ARD process. Our best hope for our son is to simply wait and hold the school and district accountable when our son's right to a free and appropriate education is violated again. The district can also take action sooner rather than later to add additional staff for a special education classroom as well as support personnel for the administration. In this board meeting, bids and funding are going to be discussed for athletic equipment, furniture, uniforms and accessories, and after-school curriculum. Those are all likely great causes that deserve funding, but surely funding could also be allocated for Callison, and consideration should also be given to student enrollment when allocating administrative positions. I would also like to suggest that the Resource Planning Department take a more thoughtful look at areas experiencing rapid growth in future school years, as projections for these areas have not been accurate and they place a tremendous burden on all school resources, staff, and facilities. Thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you. To the last 2 gentlemen who just spoke, we cannot dialogue, but we do have your contact information, and I will give it to our Deputy Superintendent, Ray Galindo, who will be getting in touch with you, perhaps with some of your questions and concerns and addressing them. Mr. Haroon Moniz. Please say your name. I think I'm not sure I did that right.
It's been happening since I was a middle school student at Northside. I am Haroon Moniz.
Okay.
Aaron in English, same name. But I am the Executive Vice President of Northside AFT, as well as the chair of the COPE. COPE stands for Committee on Political Education. And Northside AFT's COPE is really an organization within Northside AFT that teaches teachers about laws that pass in Austin. Now, 2 years ago, COPE, Northside AFT COPE, had our first post-legislative breakfast for teachers, and Ms. Reed and you yourself, Ms. Freeman, were there. And so we are going to do that again this year on September 21st, 2019, at Northwest Vista College's Lago Vista room. And so I'm here tonight on behalf of Northside AFT to invite all of you to that event. Confirmed guests at this moment are Jose Menendez, Ray Lopez, and Diego Bernal, as well as Patty Quincy, who works with us in Austin. They are going to be answering questions. I know HB3 usurped pretty much all the air in the room, but there were other legislations that passed that affect us as teachers and Northside as a whole. And so that's what we're going to be educating our members and the audience on. And I would cordially like to invite all of you to be there. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes citizens to be heard. Next item on the agenda is under facilities and operations is schematic design. Mr. San Miguel.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. We have a couple of items for you tonight for consideration. The first one is our security lobbies, titled 2020 Security Lobbies for 23 campuses. It's interesting that we started this project literally another bond program ago, and this will be the last series of security lobbies at elementary schools that will finish out literally the entire school district in terms of the elementary schools. Tonight we have the architects, Next Gen, and Joel Hernandez will be giving the brief presentation for 23 security lobbies. No pressure, Joel.
No, I don't feel any pressure. Okay, well, thank you for allowing us to present to you today. I will try my version of Sesame Street's minute waltz here and go pretty fast. So bear with me.
This has been reviewed in committee.
It has. This is not, oh, there we go. Okay, so the first one is Hausman. I'm going to go quick here. And this is kind of indicative of the rest of the facilities. It's not clicking. Monica, help. Okay. So on all of these we have, and you'll have them in your booklets, all of the site fencing. The project is comprised of two main components. The first being securing the perimeter fencing, and in those cases, it may just mean something as simply as upgrading it to the current standards. In other places, it's actually adding fence. And then the second component is the actual lobby itself. So here's the entrance to this particular facility, and this is what we're proposing as far as the security vestibule. The vestibule itself being the green portion. On the others, from now on, we will not be showing the site. It's fairly repetitive, and as I mentioned earlier, it's in your booklet. Broccoli is our next school, so here's some images of Broccoli. Entrance is up here. Reception to your left, so now we basically are doing that. Next one is Colonies North. This one's a little different from the majority of them in the sense that it's embedded into the facility itself, but here's what we're proposing. Okay, Franklin Elementary School. So this one we have the entry, reception to your right. Pretty straightforward as the other 50 that we've done. Helotes Elementary School. Entry is here, reception on your right, basically putting it right up front. Kuntz. So we got entry lobby here, reception on your left. With some shuffling, we're proposing once again to put it right up front. Leon Springs, entrance is here. Basically just doing that. Los Reyes Elementary School. Entry is here, reception on your left. McAndrew Elementary School.
Joe, I know we're under pressure, but a few more seconds on the pictorial piece, just so that we can get a grasp. Thank you.
No, no problem.
Just a couple seconds. Okay, you're fine.
Oh, more?
That's okay.
All right. here's the entry, library on your left, admin on your right. We're basically, once again, putting everything right up front. Next one is Northwest Crossing. Here's some images of that. So as you come in, here's that waiting area. We're coming in with that. Next one is Scobie.
Okay, Joel.
No, I hit the button. It didn't do anything. There we go.
I thought you looked.
So we come in, waiting to your left, and we're once again putting it right up front at the front door. Wonky. Some images of that. You can see the admin there to your left. So you come in, waiting's on your left. We're putting it once again right as front, near the front door. The next are kind of a series of schools that are kind of sister schools. So the solution is relatively the same on all of them. And in these particular ones, they have that secondary level as you walk in. So as you walk in, this on the backside of that is that. So we are coming up with, here's that elevated portion. So as you come in. So what we're proposing is no different really in terms of putting the security lobby up front, but more importantly, the portion that is secured is much higher than it is in some of the other more standard facilities. And this is consistent for both Henderson, so you can see conditions are the same. Virtually the same plan.
Joel, will you remind us, what is that height in these?
On these are 16. The highest we've done of the current models that we've done is about 14, but we have done some that are pretty tall. Most are much shorter than that because there's no reason to go that high. Nichols is the third one, so you can see there we got that same condition. And guess what? Same solution. So, and then the next three are also very similar in design. I won't say by who. So as you come in, waiting on your right, that solution. Next one is Kruger Elementary School. Here's some images. So as you come in, waiting's on your left, same solution. And then lastly, Mead Ellis Elementary School. As you come in, waiting on your left, same solution. Monroe May also has the sister school, so as you come in, waiting's on your right, putting the lobby right up front. Oops, sorry. Something went fast on me there. This is Stubing. So Stubing is the same as the previous one. Security vestibule right up front in the waiting area. Blackman. So as you come in, here's the waiting area. And it's right there. Scarborough. Entry lobby, waiting on your right, putting it right up front once again. Okay. Maybe not. It's not cooperating. I think Jesse's getting in the way. Joe Ward. Some images. We're getting to the W's, guys. Entry, waiting on your right. Once again, putting it right up front. Done.
Thank you.
I just want to make a couple of comments. One is, this is, as Mr. San Miguel indicated, this is an initiative we began in the 2014 bond that we set a pretty high bar to complete in the 2018 bond. And then after we did that, I told Leroy, I said, okay, you're going to knock this out in the first couple of years, all 40, however many schools. So thanks to the staff and facilities, thanks to Joel and his team who we've asked to design all of these as we've gone along. And contingent on approval of these tonight by the close of the 2020 calendar year, this initiative will be closed and all Northside elementaries will have the secure entry lobby. So with that, would recommend approval of the schematics.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. Chair of the this was presented at the building committee. Chair of the building committee is Melissa, who's not here. Anyone here that was at the building committee would like to make any comments? Okay. Well, great job, Joelle. I know you've become an expert at this. Is this a different certification, another certification that perhaps? Okay. This item is for approval. Any questions that any board members may have? Is there a motion that comes before the board?
I motion that we approve the, motion that we approve the design. I'm sorry, I left it.
Schematic design.
Schematic design.
Security lobbies.
I'm sorry?
The security lobbies.
For the security lobby. I'm sorry. I lost my place here.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to approve the schematic design. Any other discussion from any board members? See none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And thank you. Thank you, Mr. San Miguel.
Just a note that we're under the first level of the security lobbies as we speak today, and those will be finished by December of this year.
Okay, thank you.
The next item is for amendment number 1 for the GMP for Callison Ranch Area Middle School, our next middle school. And we had Bartlett Cock was awarded the construction manager at risk contract on June 26th of 2018. And the project consists of several phases in order to be able to expedite the process, the construction process, given the project scope and the complexity of the project. This request is for an amendment number 1 for not to exceed the sum of $20,083,381. And it's for the necessary work to commence the project, of which it will consist of site work and the superstructure. So this is part 1, so to speak, what we call amendment 1 of several amendments that will be brought forth to the board as soon as the remainder of the project is bid. And in the audience, we have Jerry Alamo Architects, was the architect, and the contractors is Bartlett Cock, Scott Parker, and James Carroy as well.
Okay, thank you. Any comments from any board members? This item, again, is for approval. It did come before the building committee, and it was discussed. Is there a motion to come before the board?
Oh, second.
We have a motion and a second. Again, any other comments, discussion? See none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries. And
Thank you.
great.
Okay, go to work.
That's right. Next item on the agenda, Mr. San Miguel.
The next item is our schematic design for our next elementary school, FM 471 area number 4 elementary school. And of course, this was also proceeds from the 2018 bond program provided for this elementary school, which is one of two that are in this particular bond program. We have what we call a joint collaboration between 2 architects, and it's of course Garza Architects and Next Gen. Jesse Garza and Joel will be giving the joint presentation. One of the things that I think is important to note is that when we ask the architects to give us a new, fresh idea, and in our world, that's always scary when you ask architects to have something fresh. But I can tell you that they came up with some very, very good and innovative ways to be able to enhance our facility. So we're proud to present this to you today, and they're going to do the honors.
Thank you. And before you leave, Mr. San Miguel, is this relatively unique that we have 2 architects on a?
Well, it's unique. Yes, it is unique. We hardly ever have 2 architects.
Right. I don't.
As a venture collaboration.
Right. I didn't remember that. Okay.
Most of us don't play well together.
But not in the.
But we do.
We're doing
okay.
fine.
We're okay. We're okay.
I promise to slow them down a little bit, but not too
Yes.
slow.
Okay.
So, Joel's going to lead us off.
All right. Well, once again, thank you for allowing us to present to you tonight. As mentioned, we're presenting the new FM 471 North Area number 4 elementary school. This clicker will catch up with me at some point. There we go. So let's talk about the site first. So we've got our basic kind of assessment in terms of the site. So the new site for the elementary school is right across from the existing Dr. Folks Middle School, if you're familiar with that. This being GOM and this being Swayback Ranch. So in terms of views, as you can see, we've got all of this is pretty much built out now. In terms of views, we have views towards GOM as well as to Dr. Folks Middle School, and that's kind of the basis of our design. We do have some easements around the perimeter, and one of the things that we focused on very early on was establishing a common access alignment with Folks Middle School. In addition to that, it kind of laid itself out in terms of a north-south alignment to match the topography, which is kind of our high point is here to a low point here, which also lines up addressing Folks Middle School. And in this process, we've also met with all of the entities, since this is in the ETJ of the district. So we've met with City of San Antonio, Bexar County, Transportation, as well as your police department to ensure that the things we're doing support what they're trying to do. We also wanted to make sure that we had a clear separation of the student drop-off and the bus drop-off. And then more importantly, and you'll see this throughout our design, security is paramount. Obviously, having done 70 vestibules for you, we certainly recognize that that's really what we were trying to do from the get-go as far as our design is concerned. There we go. So here's our layout, and we'll be showing it in more detail. But basically, as you can see, we were able to check the box, so to speak, on all of the items that we set out to do in terms of establishing common access, having a north-south alignment that kind of faces the middle school, clear separation of parent drop-off to bus drop-off, and then more importantly in terms of security, and by security I mean we were able to put all the play fields and things of that nature where the students are out and about on the backside of the school so that they're not facing GOM Road. So in terms of the security plan, we basically have a series of concentric circles. So as you can see, we have one here that forms the perimeter and then another inner one in here. We have 2 controlled access points. We have a gate here at the bus drop-off, and then we have some controlled bollards here so that for probably 99% of your time, those bollards will be up and set so that these are 2 clear, distinct parking areas. But in those events where either it's an emergency and you need to open it up so that if this is potentially blocked or this is potentially blocked, people can still get out. More importantly, for those events when you have a large influx of parents, you could open it up for that as well so that if a parent can't find parking, they can literally go to the next parking lot without having to go all the way around. So here's our parent drop-off. So as you can see, we come off of Swayback Ranch, which lines up with the entrance into Dr. Folks Middle School. And basically they come around. So as you can see, we have plenty of stacking so that parents can drop off their children safely. And then secondly, we have the bus. So the buses will be coming off of GOM Road, basically following this path here to a drop-off point here near the cafeteria gymnasium for staging. Let's talk a little bit about the floor plans. So this is how that lines up in regards to the plan, and we'll be showing some enlargements here. But I just wanted to kind of show you that kind of orientation of how it fits on the site. Basically, our facility is a partial 2-story building. So this portion here of the educational, the classroom portion of the building is stacked with another basically 4th and 5th grade, and all of the other grade levels are on the ground floor. So we have basically a very clean and linear plan. Once again, because of security, we wanted to make sure that we had clear lines of sight, no hiding places. So from an administrative standpoint, you could basically put an administrator at each one of these crossings where the star is shown, and you'd be able to have a nice feel of what's going on in your campus. So once again, We wanted to make sure that there were no hidden corners, things of that nature, to maintain our security. Now we're going to work our way basically counterclockwise, or clockwise rather, of the floor plan enlargements. So as you come inside the building to the security vestibule, which is right in here, you'll get vetted and allowed to come into either the admin or into the school itself. Beyond that, we have this kind of central point, our lobby, which is directly across from the library. It's kind of the focal point of the school. And then from there, we will move our way to the classrooms on the right, or more of the public spaces or the louder spaces towards the left or north. So as we head towards the pre-K area, here's that lobby just to kind of orient you. So as you come down, we basically have what was known as PPCD and all the pre-K and kindergarten classrooms surrounding the pre-K area. So once again, we're protecting it not only visually, but also with the building as well. And all of these classrooms have doors that lead out into that playground area. And then we have some more of the support spaces along that same corridor as well. Across from that, we have the cafeteria gymnasium. So as you can see, the smaller children are all kind of located in an area where basically the majority of their day will be occurring in this portion of the day. They'll be able to go to the library, to the cafeteria, to the gymnasium, and to their playground, all while staying relatively close to their side of the building. The gymnasium cafeteria layout is following somewhat your standard in regards to having the ability to open up and use that as overflow space. So in the case of an event, you are able to use your gymnasium as additional space, and then your kitchen is basically your standard layout. Now as we move our way south towards the educational portion of it, here we have our classrooms. So as you can see, we put all the classrooms on the perimeter with all of the support and core spaces in the middle. As you'll see in a couple of slides, the second floor basically lines up identical to that, so that we become very efficient with our space. All of the components line up. And lastly, let's move to the other first grade through second grade. So once again, similar to the other portion, we have classrooms around the perimeter with more of the support and mechanical spaces in the middle. We've also included the large classroom, which is used as your science room, adjacent or in proximity to the art classroom, so that they can share both the outdoor spaces that are covered there for their use. Then lastly is the fourth and fifth grade level, which is on the second floor. So once again, just like the other classrooms of third and fourth, or second and third rather, they line up around the perimeter with all of the core spaces in the middle. Now we get into the fun scheme part, so I'll pass it on to you.
No more security lobby. I think that was 71 on this one. Okay, Joel, so what do we got here? We got, is this red?
Nope, that's the laser. Yep.
Okay, we're good. Okay, so we've got two options, I guess we're titling them schemes today, for your consideration. In both of these, the primary differences is going to be the entrance elements and the drop-off areas. The rest of the design, exterior design, architecture is going to be consistent throughout on both of these that you'll look at. So as Leroy mentioned at the start of the presentation, we wanted to bring you something that was a little bit more a departure from what has been done historically with Northside, but something we felt was a great addition to support I think the culture that Bobby mentioned earlier at Northside, but also something that was going to be not only just structure, but be multifaceted in terms of the architecture that would educate, that would inspire, something that would be intuitive, collaborative, etc. So hopefully we've proven that these schemes can support that. Oops, whoa, that's fast. Wow, that thing just, now I'm stuck. Wow. Back. You're right. I just run the. Wow. Oh, so it was you. Okay, I'm just kidding. So from a, I'm not sure. Can we get the light to get a little bit more contrast here? Thank you. So from a massing standpoint, what we've got here is this is the first story classroom area. So we want to make sure as we approach the school that we're looking at a smaller scale element, especially with elementary kids, as they approach the school. So the single story is up close to you. All the classrooms are defined by this articulation of brick pattern here and the accent color in the colored brick in the blue here. And you'll see that throughout to define the classrooms as you move through. The upper portion here is the second story that Joelle showed in the classrooms on the second floor design. And as you move around the bus loop, you'll have this drop off here. The entrance is very prominently located and centrally located there. And then as you move to the left here, and more classrooms, which is the kinder wing, and then the higher function or higher volume functions like the cafetorium and gymnasium are towards the back end. So in both cases, we're able to control scale of the buildings as you move through visually. So this is a drop-off area. We've purposely not tried to call it too much of a canopy because we like to look at it as a multifaceted feature, as we mentioned earlier. So we're looking at this as it's a collaborative promenade where the kids get dropped off. It's multifaceted in the sense of the structure, the columns that you typically see supporting a structure like this have dual functions. They have seats at the bottom. They also have elements of color throughout, and they repeat that all the way through. They're also cueing elements. So you have the I or letters or numbers, whatever we decide to do in the future there. But it's a good feature to help the kids get organized, especially at this level. One major component of this design is that if you'll notice the structure is moved away from the edge, that encourages the kids to line up along the colonnade there. And it's great for safety, but also for security. So you have, as the parents drop off, you have a great view of all the kids throughout. There's not these elements that'll prevent that. And then as you're in the building from the administrative side, you have great supervisory sight lines back towards the canopy and where the kids are congregating. So this is the first option scheme. What it does, as I mentioned earlier, from an educational standpoint, the kids are looking at multi textures, colors, scales, and also presenting opportunities for collaboration amongst kids, parents, students, or all three collectively. So the entry is very prominent with the geometric form that defines the entry really well and accepts that structure as it comes in and leads you to the entry here. This is a clear story, and this provides you light into that security lobby that Joelle showed you earlier. This also happens at that intersection. You can barely see it there, but that's right in front of the library, as Joelle explained earlier.
Is there a separate door for the library, or there is not? Is there no external?
There's a door to the outside that leads to the amphitheater.
On the back.
On the back side.
Right. Okay. The amphitheater is the focal point at the very end of the library, which we'll look at in exterior elevation in a second. So this is the promenade feature we spoke of, and the multi areas where we talked about the kids have been able to sit, collaborative areas of repose, if you will, where parents and teachers or the kids can gather, and there are also queuing elements here as well. This is directing to the main entrance. This feature on the right side is an area where there's an opportunity for fundraising pavers, if you will, that could change yearly. There's an opportunity to announce and display whatever weekly or monthly programs they may have at the school, and that's interchangeable. That is a mesh that can be changed throughout. It's also a great photo op for kids to take pictures with their parents first day of school or project-related functions that they may have that they can display there as well. This is the bringing the name towards the front of the canopy, again, canopy rather. This is very transparent, as we mentioned earlier. You can see all the way back through the classrooms and the admin, and the name record or the signage there is very light and articulated to coincide with the architecture of the structure there as well. Scheme 2, exterior massing is pretty much the same as I mentioned earlier. So the variation is going to take place there in the close-ups that you'll see in a second. Oh my goodness. Wow. Lightly press. There we go. So from this perspective here, the design is very similar. You'll see a difference in the elements that are here at the front entry, defining that from a different concept there. So this one is defining the entry using different architectural elements. It's more of a planar effect that defines it. So you've got the plane that leads you in the color here towards the entry, the vertical terminus here with a little opening there, and then that leads you into the clear story, and then another plane here. So it picks up from the architectural language that you see from this flat plane to that and there. And so as you compose those together, it provides a very nice definition for an entry there. And the corresponding element that gave us an opportunity to take this element and bring it forth, that gave us an opportunity to provide that signage for there. And so we looked at different options. This one here was the most effective, which at one point we had that as a full structure, but we lightened it up and picked up on the architecture from the supports there. So I think that turned out nicely as well. So quickly, this is a exterior rendering of the back of the building with the two-story element here on the left. This is the one opening that we have in the library, and we did that as a focal point to the amphitheater that's back here. As you move to the right of the rendering is where the bus drop-off is, off the cafeteria. So quickly, if I don't go through 4 slides at one button. There we go. So for quick reference, Scheme 1 will show you that entry element we looked at earlier, and Scheme 2 is the flanking walls and the different articulation there at the front entry. The remaining portions of the design to the left where the classrooms are and to the right are consistent throughout as the exterior of the building as well. And then those are the remaining elevations on the south end, looking from Gulm Road towards the building, this 2-story element. So there's an articulation of brick patterns as you move through the classrooms. And then as you go to 2-story, we brought in some stucco and combined it with masonry to help lighten that mass, but also to help with some of the cost control on the project. And then lastly is the elevation from more the playground side, which this is a gymnasium, and that's the overhead door from the gymnasium. And then that's the elevation of the kinder area. And as a recap, those are the 2 options that we brought for you for consideration today.
Thank you. So for my fellow board members, this item was discussed at the building committee. It was the building committee's decision to bring these 2 schemes to the full board so that the full board could have the opportunity to make the selection between Scheme 1 and Scheme 2. Katie and Melissa and I were at the building committee. Katie and Melissa are not here. Some of the items that I know that we discussed, and Brian, you were there, so if you think about any additional, please let me know. We talked about symmetry. There was some discussion about how symmetry looked good. There was some other opinions that maybe it was okay to be a little different and not be so symmetrical. There was also discussion about placement of the sign and how visible the signage was going to be from people driving up or on the street. I know that there was some adaptation that was made to that one Scheme 2 on the right to lighten that, to lighten it up so it wouldn't look so, if you will, heavy there. So the one sign is facing the parking lot, and the other one you would be seeing as you would
as
drive.
you progress through the bus,
Right.
the student drop-off, yes.
Right. And then there's not a real close-up, but on the bottom picture, the difference between Scheme 1 and Scheme 2, you could see where the help me out with the the verbiage here. What is the thing that goes over the top? It's different. One is thicker.
Right. So this is more of a heavier, or not a heavier, I guess, a more prominent geometric form that provides not only the flanking wall here, but the roof structure as well. And then the one on the right is approached by more planes or planar kind of approach. So both of them are designed to lead the visitor to that front door.
And both of them have at the very front the same architecture where the seating is around the posts and
That is
the
correct.
queuing perhaps for parent drop off or
Correct.
pickup or
So
whatever.
what we're calling the promenade is consistent throughout.
Okay. All right. Dr. Woods, anything additional?
The other comment I guess I would make is one of the things that, and again, going back to what Leroy said, we asked these gentlemen to kind of take a new look at the front, which they did. One of the things that I really like that I think is different in Scheme 1 is that in many of our elementary schools, there's some pretty heavy brick elements up at the front of the building to include the columns on the canopy and so forth. And so I really like that that's been taken out for in Scheme 1 completely. And I like the look. It's a clean look, and that was some of the conversation at building as well, that while Scheme 2 doesn't have near as much brick as we frequently do in our elementary schools at the front entry, Scheme 1 kind of takes it out completely, and yet it looks really clean and, I don't know, modern, maybe, I don't know what the right
But to
word
be
is.
fair, the only brick structure is that
Is that
one
over-
leg.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Any preference? Yes? Oh,
Just,
Bobby?
Just two quick questions, and you partially answered, but I'm not sure if I understand. On the signage, which one is more visible from the road? Not when I'm driving up, but from the road. Is it one? Okay. And then one other little question. This is really good, by the way. I do want to say that first. Separate from the schemes themselves, if community is trying to access the gym part of it, are they going through the main area first, or can they access it from another parking lot if they had community use on a weekend or something?
They could access it. There's the drive in the back, so if
There? Okay.
yeah, there's a continuous drive, the bus loop, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
they would
no,
have
that
to
sounds
queue up
good.
at the bus loop to get there, but we
Okay,
don't have a parking.
okay, thanks. No, I guess we'll see where you're at. No, I definitely like Scheme 1. You know, I don't usually give opinions, but on this matters, but I definitely like Scheme 1.
Let me just make one note, and that is that because I'm the facility guys and I also have the money to pay for all this, so to speak, it's insignificant cost between every one of those. So that's what we considered very early on, because I told these guys, don't show us anything we can't afford, that type of thing. They've heard it before. But just a point that I think needs to be made.
Thank you for including that. Mr. Lopez?
Thank you. I think it's, I like a schematic, scheme number 1, and I like all. My question centers around the third picture, the two different designs between the rooftop. Is there a significance difference in as far as heating, as far as the rooftop? There's nothing really different other than just the look, aesthetic of it, right? I mean, it's not going to
Right,
serve any other
because
purpose.
If you look at the comparison between 1 and 2, in reality, we've articulated essentially the same forms. There's your roof plane here,
Yeah.
and here's your roof plane. And as this goes down, basically we separated the two planes, so now it's 1, 2 versus a single L-shaped design. So from a roof standpoint, you have consistently the same. And then from a clear story, which is glass, you have pretty much the same amount of glass.
Okay.
Mr. Lopez,
One
I
looks a
just
little
say
bit
that-
sleekier, though. That's one, and that's where I'm like, which is the white one, right? It looks a little bit more sleek, and
Yeah,
at least in my mind. I mean, I'm not a
right.
I'm not, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, one is
Modern.
a heavier mass.
Right.
Yes.
To answer your question about energy efficiency, because we looked at that as well.
Right.
The glass, of course, is a low E glass. It's an insulated glass. And also the roof systems that we have are, have the insulation and things of that nature. So just from a thermal it's consistent with what we've built in the past. In some cases, even probably a little bit better here because it's got a lot of shading around it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm actually stuck. I mean, I like schematic 1, but you know, I could go either way. So I mean, I'm.
We could do both.
No, I know, right? No, but you know, I'm more inclined to go with number 1.
Sorry.
Mr.
The
Medina.
opportunity not.
Mr. Medina.
Get in trouble.
Thank you, gentlemen. I think both designs are really the direction we're going. I would also favor scheme 1, having a first grader. My child walks up to school. I like for him to read the name of the school in comparison driving up to it. I like the signage that's coming. You can see walking up to the school as well. Also, some of the separation where you have the lower ed, the K through first or second, and then the division of the fourth and fifth upstairs to learn that pattern what they're going to be in middle school. So that's some of the already pre-training ground. But I would definitely also like the entry point, the geometric, I guess the L shape that y'all identified is also, and the lighting that comes into the natural light. Y'all did a really good job. I would definitely, favor scheme 1. Thank you.
So people.
Is that a motion?
I was going to say, a lot of people have weighed in here, and I think I hear it.
I'll make a motion, scheme 1.
Second.
Any discussion? We have a motion and a second for scheme 1. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. I don't think we could have gone wrong with either one, but it's beautiful. It's going to be a beautiful school.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks for working so well together on this project.
Great presentation. So changing categories. Next item on the agenda, under business and finance, Mr. Rastellini, the 2018-2019 amended budget.
Thank you, Ms. Freeman. Actually, this evening, I do have a presentation just to help us through the next 6 items, since they are related. I thought this would be a good way to handle these items. We tried this last year with success, so we're going to try it again this year. So the first item that we have under Section 12A is the 2018-19 amended budget. The final amended budget, the thinking behind that is to have the final adjustments that we need in our existing budget, as well as realign all the existing resources so that we meet all the criteria and requirements of TEA. We did bring this item to the Finance Committee and discussed it in detail on August 20th last week. On the next slide, talk about a little bit about some of the highlights in the final amended budget. We did increase the appropriation just shy of $1.5 million. What really makes up those, or that amount is 3 different items. We increased our need for portable moves. We also had another expansion in our pre-K program that we spent in 18-19, and also we did advance dollars from the elementary STEM labs. Our biggest adjustments in 3 this year, and this is really not unusual, is to our revenue estimates. Keep in mind we do budget our revenue on a very conservative basis, but what you're seeing with that $25 million, again, these about three different adjustments of significance. We did adjust our property taxes upwards to our anticipated collections towards the ends of the year, and also our investment pool earnings, we did increase those. Now that particular one is also a recurring revenue, so we see that in 19-20 as well. And then also on our federal receipts, we did receive 2 cost report amounts this year, which is a little bit unusual. Sometimes it's kind of hard to tell when the federal government's going to send those monies, but we did get 2 this year. Total estimated revenues on our amended budget with those adjustments comes up to, I wasn't there yet, but that's all right. You're good. $903 million. On this particular slide with the amended budget, what you're seeing is approval on the expenditure side of our general fund revenue expenditures of $944 million. Child nutrition, $54 million. Our debt service at 601. Keep in mind with our amended budget, we do account for all our refundings and bond sales, and that amounted to about $412 million this year. So our official budget that we're asking the board to consider this evening is just shy of $1.6 billion. For your information, we do have special revenue funds. These are grants and entitlements that are outside the official budget. We bring for information. They're self-balancing, and that's roughly $72 million. And then on our capital projects funds, this amount actually equals what we sell in new money for the year. So for 18-19, we had new money sales of $115,755,000. With that, we would recommend approval of the final amended budget as presented.
Thank you. Dr. Woods, any comment?
Just again, a reminder, not to the board perhaps, but for everybody else, that this, all of the items that we see tonight are ones that have long been in motion, and have been reviewed on a number of occasions. As David said, what typically happens in Budget Amendment 3 is we settle up essentially with revenue. Because we deal with revenue on a recurring basis, we typically come in Budget Amendment 3 and account for that, settle up, if you will. And so what you see is a pretty healthy increase in revenue, a relatively modest increase in appropriations in Budget Amendment 3. And with that, would recommend approval.
Mr. Lopez is Chair of Finance.
Yes,
comment?
Madam President. We did discuss this in the Finance Committee meeting, so I move for approval of the 2018-2019 final amended budget.
We have a motion and a second for approval of the 2018-2019 amended budget. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
The next item that we have, item number B, is our annual commitment of fund balance. You may recall that we do have commitments that do require board resolution. Don't necessarily have to bring them annually, but we do because we do want to show the complete picture of our fund balance activity. So along with the commitments, we do have assignments that are actually delegated to the administration for amounts. The 1920 does include additional amounts for commitments and assignments. Specifically, we did make an adjustment on the employee benefit assignment to create some reserve to carry forward on anticipated health insurance premiums. Again, these items were discussed with the Finance Committee last week on August 20th. On the next slide, you'll see the highlights. We do have 3 commitments on the resolution, one for new schools. They do include the commitments for the 2014 and the 2018 authorization. This year, the 2010, any balance did fall off as far as the resolution goes. Technology, we do have some balance from the 2014 and also the 2018 refresh. So that amount is roughly committed for $36,700,000, almost $36,800 million, $800 million. State revenue deficits, that is the one commitment that we have set aside for future state funding shortages. Basically, any growth that we have in our fund balance or decrease in our fund balance is absorbed in this particular account. What we're anticipating in August 31 and asking the board to commit to is $135,415,000. In the assignments, we do have the employee benefits, as I mentioned earlier, about $17 million, and administrative projects is at $7.9 million. That is also, and we do have other assignments as well that we discussed in some detail with the Finance Committee. And with that, we would recommend approving the resolution to commit fund balance for 1920.
Just couple of quick comments if I could, just to highlight for the board. So in this particular commitment authorization, we would move a pretty healthy amount towards employee benefits. This is the dollars that we use to offset increases in health insurance premiums that would seem to be a matter of our everyday life. And that's an $11 million increase in that commitment for future potential increases. And then another $5 million contributed to that account we've been building for all these years to kind of insulate us from state policy changes, state budget changes, and the full amount of that set aside would be now a little north of $135 million.
Thank you, Dr. Woods. Mr. Lopez?
Yes, Madam Chairman. The item was presented and discussed at the Finance Committee meeting on August the 20th, and so I move for the approval of the commitment of the fund balance resolution as presented by the staff.
I do have a question. Do we have to read the resolution? Does the resolution?
No, ma'am. You can approve it as presented.
Okay. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution, the fund balance resolution. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Next item is the adoption of the 2019-2020 budget.
We're moving through the process. We put 2018-19 to bed. Now we're going to open up 19-20 with the recommendation on the 2019-20 proposed budget. We did conduct a public hearing last week on August 20 where we did discuss the district's proposed budget and the tax rate to support that proposed budget. We'll mention that our revenues are based on initial projected enrollments, understanding that they are moving around as we speak. Estimated values are as of August 31, 2019. Expenditures are based on the base budget. Actually, that's the recurring budget that moves forward from year to year. The 2019-20 compensation package and the 2019-20 growth and improvement package. And we did discuss additional expenditures that we moved from reserve balances with the Finance Committee last week on the 20th as well. So the highlights in our 2019-20 budget, you'll see our general fund revenues are sitting at almost $942 million. That parentheses out there actually designates the split between local dollars and state dollars. So what you're seeing there of that $942 million, 64% of it is generated from local taxes, and 36% is generated from state resources. Interesting enough, last year those same percentages were at 65-35. So although there was significant changes in House Bill 3, both in terms of tax relief and additional state funding, those percentages stay pretty much the same for Northside, and that's mainly because one thing that happened in House Bill 3 is the property value lag has disappeared. So the state is taking advantage for all practical purposes of the growth from 2018 to 2019.
So important point, because, you know, one of the ways that this was sold was as a rebalancing of the state and local share, and our shift was exactly 1 percentage point each way. And again, to David's point, the move to current year values is what causes the lack of movement, if you will. And so in urban and suburban areas all across the state of Texas, boards are looking at this right now, and they're seeing the exact same thing. It's not true everywhere, but in the major population centers in our state, this is what's going on. The reallocation or the shift of resources from state to local, or from local to state, has not materialized. So just want y'all to understand, because you'll be in conversations, I think, where folks are under a false impression because they've kind of read the headlines and not seen the actual impact on local districts. So we wanted to make sure you understood that. The other thing I'll point out here is, obviously there's a gap between $941 million in revenues and $979 million in expenditures. Remember that gap is more than closed by the annual budget sweep, as well as pulling money out of commitments to fund balance. That more than closes that. And as you see at the bottom of that slide, we're actually planning under the initial blush of the 1920 budget to set aside some additional dollars to our state aid deficit account, as well as increase the size of the unassigned fund balance. Hope I didn't get too far ahead of you.
You just took care of that slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
I appreciate it very much.
I've seen this one before.
As presented by Dr. Woods.
Yeah, sorry.
So
Apologize.
the next slide.
I get fired up.
I'm not going to let you jump in on this one.
understand.
I want this blurred. This is our 2019-20 proposed budget expenditures, basically where these dollars come from, the $979 million that's being recommended. The base budget, again, this is the recurring budget that carries forward from year to year. Compensation and benefits right at $35 million that we're adding to that. New schools, even though we didn't open a new school this year, which is very unusual for us, we do have a 2 to 3 year expenditure, so we're still spending dollars on some of our new schools. Other growth and improvement, close to $20 million. Most significantly, those dollars are directed to expanding our pre-K program. So unusually bigger numbers in our compensation and benefits and growth and improvement for those reasons. And then you see the dollars that are coming out of the assigned and committed funds for technology and administrative projects. That includes the 2016 hail damage repair that is going on, as well as the athletic projects that we had talked about in Bond 2018. Next slide. Always got to have a graph, so here it is. The proposed budget and expenditures, you're seeing this pretty much by functional areas. The big blue or gray, whatever color it is on that screen, that's our instructional budget. Roughly about 63% of our budget does drive to the instructional and campus leadership's another 8%. Supporting the students, that's our counseling services, transportation, and et cetera, about 12%. And then administrative support and district support services, that's going to be our plant and facility folks, and then the central administration. Those together is roughly 13%. And then on the next slide, the official budget, which is what the board is, we're asking the board to approve this evening. General fund, as we mentioned, $979 million. Child nutrition, little over $57 million. That is a self-budgeting, self-balance fund at this particular stage. And then our debt service fund at $195,569. That's our anticipated debt service payments, including our defeasance resolution that we had brought to the board earlier. All that for the official budget is $1.2 billion. added to that are for your information on the special revenue, the grants and entitlements, roughly 68 million. And then the capital projects, we're anticipating our new money issue at $229.1 million for 2019-20. With that, we would recommend approval of the proposed budget as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Castellini. This is a culmination of 9-10 months worth of
We'll
labor.
start tomorrow on the next one.
Okay. Okay, maybe 12 months worth of work. So thank you. And I think as we can all see that this district is solid. We're doing very well considering all of the external forces upon us. Mr. Lopez?
Yes, Madam President. Again, this item was discussed in the August 20th Finance Committee meeting. And so I move that for approval of the 2019-2020 proposed budget.
We have a motion? Yep. We have a motion and a second for the approval of the 2019 2020, it's hard to say now, 2020 budget. Further discussion? Mr. Blunt?
Just one quick question.
Yes, sir.
Is the attachment that we have incorporated where it's an official, it's a letter from you to Dr.
Right.
Woods? Is that required, or is that just sort of a process we did? Is it actually required for some reason to have it that way, or is it just?
No, that's just our
something to do with
presentation.
process?
Actually,
Okay.
within that document where you see the
Right.
3 different funds and then all those functions,
Yeah.
that's the required piece
Okay.
of it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That's all I had.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other board members? Hearing nothing else, we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the budget. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries, and here we go.
The next 3 items actually roll into how do we support this budget. So this deals with the property taxes. And so there's 3 items that we'll ask the board to approve this evening. The first one is the 2019 certified values. These values do come from, there is a calendar that's set up under statute, and they have to come from the chief appraisers of counties that we have residents in, so to speak. So we do receive certified values from Bear, Bandera, and Medina. Obviously, the majority of our values do come from Bear County. These values are used in the truth and taxation calculations, specifically where we calculate our rollback calculation on the tax rate. Again, these values and the nature of these values is discussed with the Finance Committee on the 20th. Next slide actually shows you the components. I know that's a very hard slide to read on the screen, but what you see at the top, total for NISD, and that's just the addition of Bear, Bandera, and Medina. The first line is our net certified taxable values. These are the values that are not under protest or review. The next line, those are the values that are under protest and review. Now, interesting enough, when you do the certification, we don't put in expected values from the protested values. Normally, when you get your certification, they'll tell you the value of what's being under protest, and then they'll also give you an estimate of what they think it's going to be. You don't see that on this particular schedule. The other line that we see is the values with the frozen taxes. So where you see that reduction, all those values have some sort of tax cap or frozen values. Again, when we go in and calculate tax rates and what it does to the budget, we actually impute what those values would look like. So it's kind of working backwards through that process. Overall, the taxable values after tax freeze for the district is close to $55 billion for 2019. That does represent about an 8% increase over the year before, so we've had 2 healthy years of growth in the district. A little more, as we discussed in Finance Committee, a little more is leaning towards our residential values than our commercial values in growth. But with these certified values, about 66.5% of the values in the district is going to be classified as residential, and the remaining is going to be classified as commercial and acreage. With that, we would recommend that the board approve the certified values as presented.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lopez?
Yes, Madam President, this was presented in the August 20th committee meeting in Finance, and so I move for the approval of the 2019 appraisal rolls for Northside Independent School District.
We have a motion and a second to approve the certified appraisal rolls for NISD. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. And next item.
The next piece that we have in the puzzle is the approval of the effective and rollback tax rates. These particular tax rates are actually calculated by the tax assessor with the help of yours truly and our consultant. These rates are used in Truth in Taxation. And the rollback rate under new legislation is referred to as the voter approval rate. So you'll see that in some of the documents and language moving forward. Again, these rates were discussed in some detail with the Finance Committee on the 20th. So the next schedule actually shows what rates that we are asking you to approve. First of all, we're asking you to approve last year's rate. I know that sounds kind of redundant, but we need to do that, which was at $1.3755. In the calculations, Truth in Taxation calculations, the effective rate actually calculates, and that's basically just a new rate for the same money, at $1.3245.75. Beyond that, the rollback rate, which is really what school districts pay attention to because we cannot exceed that particular amount. So our rollback rate or voter approval rate for 2019 is comprised of 2 components of M&O and INS as it usually is, and it totals to $1.310961. Now the 2 components actually we're seeing a decrease in our M&O rate of 7 cents, and that, again, that's part of House Bill 3 and the compression of the tax rate. We did get to add that, and that compression went down to 93 cents, and we did get back our golden pennies, our 4 golden pennies, so to speak. So we're recommending a 97 cent rate there, and that's the rollback rate. Our INS, when we apply our in Truth in Taxation, the values to our required debt service, that actually calculates to 34 pennies, a little over 34 pennies, 34.0961. Keep in mind our current tax rate is 33.55, and we are recommending that same rate for 2019. So that'll be the 9th year in a row we have not moved our INS rate, and coupled with that and coupled with the 7 cent decrease, we're actually seeing a recommended tax rate decrease for 2019. So with all that, we would recommend the board approve the tax rates as presented.
Okay. I feel like we need a drum roll and a fanfare
No,
here.
we're getting to the good one next.
Okay. Mr. Lopez.
Yep, Madam President, this was discussed in the Finance Committee on August 20th, and so I move for the approval of the 2019 effective tax rate and the 2019 voter approval rollback tax rate for Northside Independent School District.
We We have a motion and a second to approve the tax rate as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. And the last item under
The
this
last item is the
segment.
ordinance to fix and levy taxes. So this is the tax rate. We did conduct public hearing on August 20th as required. We did adopt the budget a few minutes ago. As required, we're recommending a rate that does not exceed our rollback rate of $1.310961. Our proposed rate is at $1.3055. Keep in mind that's 7 cents less than where we are today. Since our tax rate is coming down, we don't have a specific required language in the ordinance or the motion. So that is a little bit different than what we did last year. And again, that's because of the tax rate decrease. We did discuss the details of this particular rate with the Finance Committee, and with that, we would recommend the board consider fixing and levying taxes by ordinance as presented.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
So this language is a little lengthy, so.
Okay, we're with you.
Madam President, this was presented in August, on the August 20th Finance Committee meeting. And the consideration and approval of the ordinance fixing and levying the Northside Independent School District ad valorem taxes for the year 2019-2020, directing the assessment and collection thereof and other matters in connection with therewith. Madam Chairman, I present, in reference to the ordinance as presented, I would like to make the following motion. I move that the Northside Board of Trustees approve an ordinance to levy an ad valorem tax to be assessed and collected for the year 2019-2020 at an ad valorem tax rate of $1.3055 or to be used for maintenance and operation proposed and 0.3355 to be used for payment of bonds authorized by the voters of the district.
Thank you. Would that be it, Mr. Lopez? Is that
Did
the
I
end
do
of
it
it?
right?
Done now.
Did I do it right?
Okay. All right, there's a motion. We have a motion and a second for approval of what was discussed. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries, and we're done with that. Put that to bed.
We will try not to bring a discussion of the budget for at least 2 months.
October,
that's
it's
it.
coming back in
Guys,
October.
it returns in October, so
A lot of work on that.
yeah, a lot of work on that, especially with the passage of House Bill 3. A lot of work on that, a lot of adjusting to new law, and really proud of where we stand financially, and really feel like we have created a sustainable budget, a good situation to be in.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda, and by the way, my fellow board members, we've received word from Melissa Chumley that she will not be able to join us tonight, so it's 4 of us that are going to carry this.
Carry on.
Yes, sir. Ms. Hill.
Yes.
First reading of policy DEC local.
Again.
Again.
Good evening, all. Well, as Yogi Berra said, we have a little deja vu all over again as I bring the first reading of DEC local again with 2 additional minor changes as related to leaves and absences. The first change is the use of a more generic term for our time and attendance system instead of using the brand name Kronos. And those changes are on page 1 and page 4, very similar to what we did with the generic term for our absence management system instead of Smart Find Express. So for future use, we're just using generic terms instead of brands. The only other additional change is adding wording to specify how local leave can be earned in accordance with our current practice and our administrative regulations that are related to this policy. These changes are on page 4. Very minor changes. These changes were discussed at the August 13th Policy Committee meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hill. Any questions? Is there a motion to come before the board?
First reading.
Oh, I'm sorry, first reading again, okay.
It's the second first read.
Yes, thank you. So next time we'll have a first, second
Correct.
option.
In September, we will move to the first, second reading.
And you'll never see this one except for 10 years from now.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hill.
On hiatus.
Next item on the agenda under administration, first reading and adoption of legal policies. TASB local update, or yes, 113, Mr. Galindo.
Yes, ma'am. At your places in your blue folders, I actually have a summary of both legal and local policies. And so I'll begin with the legal, and I will not read that to you, but I'll go through and mention a couple of things on each of them, and if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. As always, selected a dozen, or a half dozen, I should say, policies that might be of interest to you and that will have an effect on some of our local policies. So the legals that you see there are the ones that I'll go through first. So the first one is BBD legal that deals with campaign ethics, specifically political advertising. And again, I'm not going to read these to you, but there is a definition thereof. Political advertising, as well as examples and a disclosure statement, and the new language there actually clarifies any requirements related to political advertising, and so those are the highlights of that one. BBE legal is deals with board member authority, and as trustees you have access to information in terms of records, documents, and any type of other information. And so there's language there now, and again, this is all legal on the misuse of information, any consequences, and that's found on page 2, as you can see there with the subheading of offenses regarding information. The next one is BJCD, another one that deals with you as trustees, this one with the superintendent evaluation, specifically the appraisal process, and this was all driven by the Lone Star Governance superintendent evaluation, and so there's language there that addresses that, and you'll see soon in the local policy how that affected our local. The next one is CDB legal and deals with disposal of school property. And so really the only mention there for you is that at the top literally of that one on page 1 there's a cross-reference to CBB. And so that's actually the next legal policy to bring to you, and also will affect our local policy. And bottom line here to summarize, there is new language here of disposing of school property, especially as it deals with if it was purchased with federal resources and funds. It's a lengthy legal policy. It actually begins on 11 and goes through 14, and it has all the information there, again, regarding real property acquired with federal funds and how we would dispose of any of the items that may have been purchased using them. The last one deals with investigations and searches as it relates to students. There's new language there that is updated with recent case law. Basically just clarifies that searches are permissible of students, especially if there's any concern of any danger to the student or any other students. And so, again, a quick summary of those for you. In your, obviously, packet, you have all of them in detail, the legals, and because these are legal in nature, we do ask for formal adoption, but obviously we can't amend them in any way.
Thank you, Mr. Galindo. I know that this was a quick summary of the 250 pages that are on our
260
board.
actually.
260? Okay, I missed some on our board agenda. Any comments or questions from the board?
Ms. Freeman?
Yes.
Yes, this was reviewed and discussed in policy committee, and I moved for adoption for these policies. 113.
We have a motion, a second, to approve the legal policies as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. And next item, Mr. Galindo.
Yes, ma'am. So, Ms. Freeman, these are the local policies as a result of Update 113. And again, in your blue folder, you have a summary of those, and I'll go ahead and go through them. Of course, if you have any questions, be happy to answer them. So the first one, and it was affected by, as I just went through BBE legal, this is BBE local, and really just alerts you. There's language there. Again, I'm not going to read these to you, but alerts you of the level of confidentiality if ever you are to request any records. So that if you do, and if anything that is confidential or not subject to public disclosure, as a staff, we would make you aware of that so that you are aware of the levels of security controls that are related to that information. That's located on page 2, and you'll see that under the subheading of confidentiality. And so that's the only change to that policy, which is again on page 2 of 2. The next one for you to review is BDD local, deals with trustees and attorneys, and really the procedure for the superintendent or the board president or a designee to hire an attorney or a firm if ever they were seeking legal counsel. There's language there, as most firms have gone to engagement letters versus contracts, so that's summarized in there, as well as any decisions regarding settlements will be dealt on a case-by-case by you as a board of trustees, and so that also is included all under that policy of BDD, board internal organizational dealing with an attorney. The next one for you is BJCD, deals with the superintendent evaluation. And that is one that actually the version you have in the system is actually going to be amended in that we have recommended some changes to the actual TASB recommendations. The second sentence in the second paragraph under written evaluation will actually be included. So in the final version that will be submitted for approval, that will be included. And again, this has to do with the whole notion of the Lone Star governance superintendent evaluation, which is now part of what the commissioner is encouraging. Next policy is CI, deals with school property disposal, and again, this one was mentioned in the legal version. Yes, ma'am.
Before you leave that, I know we talked about the other piece that was struck in this particular version that we have regarding the timing of the superintendent evaluation. We were talking about amending that.
Right.
Is that for discussion? How do we handle that here, Dr. Woods, your opinion?
The recommendation we got was, as you see it presented, where they struck out the timing, and in the conversation at committee, we agreed that that needed to be left in, and so that's what Ray meant about this one will be amended prior to it coming back for second reading, to leave that sentence in place. That was something that we added by board action about 3 years ago, and want to keep that in place.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. The next one is CI local, and again, this one affected by the legal version. Really just has language that includes district vehicles as, of course, included with books, supplies, equipment, and so forth that is considered district property. Vehicles are now included in there, and of course, anything that, again, mentioned is handled or purchased with federal funds. There's language there as to the disposal of them if and when we ever have to do that. Next policy is CO local, deals with food and nutrition management, and for a number of years now we've discussed and have had some programs in regard to disposal of food and trying to minimize food waste. This now allows for the expansion of what we do at our campuses with leftover food in terms of donations and anything else in terms of disposal. Also has some language there in regard to the number of lunches allowed for students who may have run out of money in their accounts, which we've dealt with in the past and have already had in practice our procedures where no student will go without a meal. And so there is language there in terms of the elementary and the high school, which we go well beyond the numbers that are mentioned there. The other piece of language there to mention is also the elimination of the terms reimburse and alternate when it comes to meals, so that all is also included in there as well. Next policy actually continues with food and nutrition. It's a new one, deals with the procurement of anything related to child nutrition. And the language is changed, or I should say presented, because it is a new policy as per state and federal guidelines, is what you see there. Also has a clause there for any locally grown or raised agricultural products. District now has the ability to have and give those companies preference if they choose to do so as part of the child nutrition meals that they're providing. And then the next one, continuing with child nutrition, a new one also that has 3 points. One is the community eligibility provision is laid out, one that we have already been doing for a number of years at about 49 of our campuses. So that's now laid out for us in code. Eligibility appeals, again, something that we have worked with families for years, is now spelled out as well as anything, and because of the USDA being involved, how to handle any civil right complaints is laid out there in that policy as well. The next 2, 4, 5, and there's actually 6 primarily under the E series of policies are recommended, you can see, for deletion. The one deals with districts and, of course, us having to carry liability insurance, which we do. That is being recommended to be deleted, as well as a number of the E-series, which include everything from organization of instruction, groupings of instruction, class sizes, staff allocations, you can see, field trip guidelines, all of those TASB feels are administrative in nature and should be addressed in an admin reg. As an example, ED with the organization of instruction is a policy that dates back to '97 and basically states that our elementaries K through 5, middles 6 through 8, and high schools 9 through 12, which is something they feel is administrative in nature and doesn't have to exist as a policy.
And I'm sorry.
Go.
I was going to say those 3 or 4 E policies don't have any legal.
Correct.
Okay.
One of the, sorry, more on this, Ray. Sorry. One of the comments I'd make on a couple of these, one is EEA. That's a policy that was established in the district quite a ways back in '97 and really hasn't been revisited in that time. The district's philosophy, for example, for enrolling students in high rigor courses that we would call advanced academics has changed significantly in that 22-year period of time. There was a time where we were very careful that kids met certain criteria before they could have entry. We've since expanded access dramatically in that period of time, and so this policy really does not any longer match our philosophy for how we work with students who want to try something that's really challenging, right? So that's one example. Another one that I would point out to the board is the next one, EEB. That's a staffing policy that's existed kind of uniquely, not kind of, absolutely uniquely in Northside. This was created a number of years ago. It's very specific, and as Ray indicates, this is really more of an administrative issue. It was revised, as you can see, in 2013, and the reason for that revision was because of the budget cutting in 2011, and we made significant changes to the way we staff schools in order to shrink our budget back. And so we had to come and amend this policy to kind of reflect our practice. It illustrates the reason why this really is better served in an administrative regulation. We would always have a regulation around staffing. It is such a large portion of our budget that staffing would always be something that would be very carefully controlled. But that notion of having to amend it because of what the state did to budgets in 2011 kind of illustrates the reason why perhaps this ought to be deleted. Just a couple I wanted to point out.
Thank you, Dr. Woods.
Mr. Eastman, the last couple to kind of bring to your attention are EHBAF. This one deals with special ed video. This we actually delayed adopting a policy and waited for the rulemaking, which is still going on as recent as January of this year. But the changes there are that under request on page 1, that any request by a parent of a child who's special ed, if they requested the cameras, that it be in writing, which we have done from the very beginning, and not just over a phone call or conversation. We have some very clear procedures that address any and all of the changes that are included in this update, including when the camera is activated and when it is deactivated. We do have students on occasion that after we install a camera, move away. We notify the families and deactivate the cameras. Keyword also on page 2 with confidentiality of recordings is the word release is added to replace access, which basically means that if ever there's a situation where we think we need to release video, it'll be just that for parents, but not necessarily go up to the school and access and view the cameras, which was never the intent of the law. And then finally, there's a section there in terms of complaints, in terms of expediting any type of concern a family may have to TEA. And again, everything that we feel that we've been in compliance with since the onset of this statute. And then the last one is F deals with student rights and responsibilities and searches. A few points there. First one is that a student, just clarifies, may not refuse to answer questions during an investigation based on their right to not incriminate themselves. If we feel they need to answer and cooperate with us. Also defines what district property is, from desks, electronic devices, books. Anything that is issued by the school is considered school property and is subject to be searched at any time without any notice. That's clearly spelled out. And then at the very end, searches in general, vehicles and any type of belongings, anything that we feel, as we've always used in education, if we have reasonable suspicion, we have a right to do a search if necessary. So that, Ms. Freeman, is a summary of the locals. This is first reading, and again, we will have the amended version of BJCD as we discuss in policy, and again tonight. The rest should all remain unless there's any other changes, and we'll address the others in admin regs as Dr. Woods discussed.
Thank you. Any questions for any board members? So if you do have any specific questions as you continue to review them, you can always talk to Mr. Galindo, and then this comes back next board meeting. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Next item. I'm lost.
We're moving on to superintendent.
Yes, under superintendent. So we have several items, 7 items under here. Because we're missing a couple board members, it would be my recommendation with your approval that we delay the discussion and possible approval of board operating procedures. We've amended that a while back such that we don't need 100% of board approval. We have a supermajority, which we don't have here tonight, but it's also good. I think it's good practice for us to delay that regardless of whether we had that supermajority or not. So that we do need to delay. And then in talking with Dr. Woods, there's item D. Dr. Woods, I don't know if you want to talk about that now, but go ahead.
Just a reminder that this was an item that was on our July retreat agenda. We didn't get to this item, and so we agreed that we would bring it forward on another agenda. I kind of feel like similar to operating procedures, because there are so many different ideas about how to do this, that this is another item that would be best held to a meeting where the board was more fully represented. And so, again, would suggest delay on that one.
Okay, so those two being delayed. Item B, board superintendent goals, Dr. Woods.
Yes, ma'am. This was also an item that we discussed. We did get to a conversation about in our retreat in July, and we did not at that time discuss a lot in the way of changes to the goals. We did add the first goal on the list around continuing to foster and develop Northside culture, and we added a caveat to one of the bullets under the final goal, whole child, around environmental awareness and conservation. And those were the only changes made to the goals. And given that they're minor in nature, and given that staff need to be working on these like today, would ask for the board's consideration.
Okay. I will say to the rest of y'all here, I know that it was brought to Dr. Wood's attention. There was a comment made from a board member who wasn't here regarding possible more of a focus on middle school.
Right.
Tell me which item that was.
That was it's goal number 2. Improve participation and achievement of a broad variety of academic co-curricular programs offered in the school district, and there was an ask around kind of an emphasis on middle schools. And that I would just say to the group that a couple of years ago we actually did have we did have kind of a middle school focus in that goal. Last year we had a conversation about kind of broadening that focus because we really felt like it was appropriate pre-K-12, not only in 6, 7, 8. And so that's why that focus was taken out in the 18, 19 set of goals.
And taken out, but then it was
broadened, I guess,
yes.
is a better way to say that.
Okay,
Right.
yes. So it include, right now, these goals include elementary, middle school, high school,
Of
or
course,
all of our K
yes,
through 12,
absolutely.
K through 12 kids. And so regarding these board superintendent goals, we will come back and revisit these. Any additional comments from any board members, especially those who aren't here, we can still have that discussion as we go forward. Any comments from anybody here? Do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll move approval of the 19 through 12.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Lopez.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Okay.
No, I think a lot of, just a quick comment. I think a lot of, these goals that we have, it's a lot of forward thinking as well, looking into the future, what the district looks like, things like that. So, I'm really happy with these board superintendent goals. It's going to be encouraging. It's encouraging to see that we're moving forward with some of the stuff in here. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you. And I also appreciate the addition, as we were talking about this in our board workshop, the addition of a culture and us maintaining our culture. And I know we'll be, Bobby, I know you've talked about that a lot and how important that is. And we all understand how blessed we are here in Northside because of our deep culture. And we want to continue to nurture that. So great thing. So we have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the board superintendent goals. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries, and then you can now go to work on those.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely.
Next item,
Continue
endorsement.
work. Yes, ma'am. Endorsement of we do have a request from a current TASB director who is running for that place again and I believe unopposed, for an endorsement from the Northside Board of Trustees. And with that, I'll let Mrs. Freeman give additional details.
So as you all know, the seat that Robert Westbrook holds for Region 20D position is open. He is unopposed. There was a revision of policy or bylaws in the last delegate assembly, such that any director that is interested in this position must go through the nominating committee interview before, let me go back. So there's a nominating, the normal procedure is for directors to be nominated by their board and then submit a nomination to TASB, and then each director appears before the nominating committee. The nominating committee makes a selection and presents its slate at the delegate assembly. There's an opportunity to run from the floor, if you will, if you are not selected by the nominating committee. But the only people that can do that are those people that did go through the nominating committee interview. So I asked TASB, I said, look, I want to make sure I understand this correctly, and that is correct. And I asked Robert. Robert did the same thing. Is there anybody that has the opportunity to run against him? And the answer is no. So he is the lone person in here. And I asked him about if he's continuing to seek endorsements. And he said, yes, there are other people running for positions that are unopposed and they are seeking endorsements. And it shows our support of him. He currently has 20 endorsements of the 56 districts in Region 20. So at this time, is this the will of the board to go ahead and I'm just asking to make the endorsement, or what are your thoughts?
Do we want to hold off on this one until we have the full board, or how soon do we have to?
We can't.
So we
The
have
deadline
to
is
make a
coming.
decision.
There is a deadline, so we either do it now or it's too late.
Okay. So.
It is my recommendation for us to go ahead and show support of Robert Westbrook. He's done a great job, and it would be my thought to post that to the board and have a vote on that.
Fine.
I don't even know if that was a motion. I was just a.
I think somebody has to make the motion.
I'll motion to recommend Robert Westbrook.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to endorse Robert Westbrook for the Region 20D position. Discussion?
Yes. Yeah, just one question. So the pass threshold has no meaning whatsoever, the 80% or whatever?
Oh, no, there is. So if you do get, if there is, but there's still no opposition. You still have to go through the nominating committee interview before, you still have to go through that piece.
So it has no meaning, the threshold? Okay, I don't know why. Okay, I'm fine with it. I just don't know why they're seeking endorsement, to be honest, at this point.
Just telling you what he told me.
All right,
Passing that along.
Okay.
And his fellow directors are doing the same.
Yeah, no, I talked to all of them. Okay.
Just saying. There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. And I guess this will, does somebody alert TASB, or how does this work? I've got a form. Oh, okay.
We'll need signatures before you leave.
Okay.
So we can get it turned in.
All right. All right, next item on the agenda is board member attendance at several, either Council of the CUBE Conference, which is an annual conference, NSBA's Advocacy Institute, which is coming up, and that's a problem here because there might be some of us who. We have the 2020 Texas Caucus of Black School Board Members, the Education Summit, and MASBA Annual Conference. And this is an opportunity for us to approve any of board members' travel or registration fees or anything to any of these conferences. It's in our board policy that anything related to TASB or to the NSBA annual convention is automatically approved. Anything else needs to come before the board. And it's been traditional that we bring this forward to have discussion and possible approval of board members' participation in any of these activities. Any comments, questions, discussions?
None.
Is there a motion?
Motion that we approve the move that we approve the board member attendance for Council of Urban Boards and Education annual conference, the NSBA Advocacy Institute, the 2020 Texas Caucus of Black School Board Members Education Summit, and the Mexican American School Board Association annual conference.
Been a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it. Motion carries.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, this next one, though, might have some implications with our three fellow board members not here. There's nominations, opportunity for us to self-nominate for the NSBA Advocacy Institute stipend. I know that our last board meeting, there were a couple people that were interested in going. We have the opportunity to put forth one person for the stipend and then an alternate. What happens with that alternate is that such that if the first person that was selected on a given board, if they, for some reason, within a specific period of time cannot go, then the alternate is then able to go with approval of the committee. So it's an opportunity for us to appoint one person and then an alternate. I know that there was one, I think Carol, Carol's?
Was
I
it
can't
Melissa?
remember. I do not remember. Is there anybody here that's certainly, we just approved anybody could go with or without the stipend. And we do have a deadline for this. The deadline has been extended, but
I thought it was Melissa, wasn't she one of the ones that wanted to do it?
we have a deadline, I believe, of September. It's been moved up a week, so I think it's September 10th.
Right, so really, we just need a name to put to the stipend tonight, given that you've already approved attendance for any others that want to go.
So is there anybody here that's interested?
I'm not.
So I don't know whether we actually need board approval if,
Can we approve one trustee to do it without saying a name?
Yes, and then.
Yes. Put the name.
and an alternate.
And an alternate, and just approve a trustee and an alternate to apply for the stipend, and then we can fill in the names between now and the deadline.
Okay.
So moved.
Is there a second? Okay, there's a motion and a second to approve a trustee and an alternate to go to the Advocacy Institute. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, and I'll get with the three that aren't here and find out who might be interested.
Okay.
All right. Future agenda items. We're down to the bottom here.
Yes, ma'am. We are indeed. In your blue folder, you have a form created by Dr. Jordan. We've still got some NEIC vacancies that we would love to have nominees for. So there are places on the actual piece of paper, or she's provided her email and waited for you to text that information to her. You've got a copy of the future agenda items we're holding for now. September is also a pretty significant meeting, especially considering the items that will now move from tonight to that meeting. And then lastly, you've got a Tassa Tasby convention flyer. Where are we? Do we have travel for all these folks that are here? We're good? All right. Bobby knew it was coming. He could anticipate the question. All right, so we'll work on that. And that is it for future agenda items from Ms. Freeman.
All right. And let me
Madam
find-
President?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and see if I could add an item for our future agenda item.
Okay.
And it would have to be, and this is going to come up on the recommendation of Dr. Woods. I'd like to, the topic would be centered around our transportation with buses. So,
And we had talked about doing that in a policy
and
committee.
a policy, yeah. So, whatever you recommend, but I'd like to see if we could do that first and then figure out what we need to go from there. But
Okay. Anybody else?
that's it.
All right. The Board of Trustees on August 27th, 2019, beginning at 9:15, will convene. Well, let's give ourselves a 5-minute break. Beginning at 9:20, we'll convene in closed meeting in accordance with Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 551.072, and 551.074. Discussion will take place in the following items. Do I have to read this?
No.
Okay.
as presented on the agenda.
All right, and those items are presented on the agenda. Thank you all for attending. You're welcome to come back after the executive session if you'd like. Otherwise, good night. Board of Trustees on August 27th, 2019, beginning at 9:37 p.m. will convene an open meeting. Is there a motion to come before the board? Mr. Medina.
I move to motion to accept the settlement as discussed in closed session.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. Is there another motion to come before the board?
Motion to approve the appointment as discussed in closed session.
We have a motion and a second to approve the appointment as discussed in executive session. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Ayes have it, motion carries. 2 agenda items. The board ended its meeting at 9:38 p.m. on August 27th, 2019.